Are we ready to go? Being recorded. Okay.
Yeah, I started the recording.
Awesome. Well, welcome. My name is Jamie DeWitt, and I am a teacher supervisor at UC Santa Cruz with Celeste and Jennifer. I supervise single subject English, and this will be my 9th year there, which is kind of crazy. And I'm pretty excited to share my workshop with you. So I'm going to share my screen and then hopefully do this right. Um, and then we'll get started. Okay. All right. Can y'all see? I want to see like more of you. So let me make this bigger. I like seeing faces. There we go. Okay. And I apologize. My camera is over here, but my screen is actually over here. So if I look like I'm not talking to you, I apologize. But my workshop is on using appreciative inquiry, which is a framework that I focused on when I did my doctoral study, and I used it with in-practice teachers. And I thought this framework and this structure was just kind of a really cool way to bring a really positive asset-based lens to the dialogue portion of supervision and mentorship. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I will just kind of give you a quick overview of what is appreciative inquiry and how it can be a tool that I envision as for mentorship and supervision. And then the goal is then to put you into some breakout rooms so you can have some conversations with each other using the appreciative inquiry framework, given some guidelines and some suggested topics. All right, so I apologize in advance. I talk really fast, so if I lose you, I'll just like give me a little like thumbs down, slow down. I'd be happy to do so. Okay, so just to kind of get us all thinking and kind of the framework and where this came from, I just wanted you all to kind of in your mind's eye think about a student teacher that perhaps you have worked with in your supervision that kind of struggled with the process of receiving feedback or constructive criticism or having a growth mindset about their developing teaching practice. So just kind of, has everyone experienced at least one person like that? This has been a conversation in our supervision team about ways to best support these students so that they can become the best teachers that we know that they can be. Also knowing that the teaching profession is a profession that is filled with feedback, sometimes unsolicited feedback. So really, how can we help guide them to being open to receiving feedback and how to process that feedback in a way that doesn't feel like they're being attacked or criticized, but as a way of helping them develop their reflective practice and to take what they need from feedback and kind of maybe leave aside things that aren't in alignment with their wants, their needs for their individual practice. So some of the traits or characteristics that I observed through our supervision team's conversations around students that were struggling with this, even as we as a team are working to build our toolbox to better support, was, maybe they were an outstanding student, high school, university, maybe they have master's degrees, but teaching that subject isn't as easy or natural as they maybe imagined, or they have some perfectionist tendencies, like that lesson plan can be revised for all of time, but at some point we just got to go for it. Like, it's okay. It's never going to be perfect. This idea of like needing to save face, that, like I need to show you my best foot forward always. And I can never accept that vulnerable place of like, I'm not quite perfect here. They'd be really a strong desire to appear competent in the eyes of someone who is evaluating them. They want to be viewed with high, esteem. Sometimes they're in conflict with beliefs and practices. They're either come with a set of beliefs or they're being exposed to beliefs through the program, and then they're in the real world in a classroom and there's some disconnect for them with the practices that they need to put in place, or they're not quite sure what those practices need to look like to be in alignment with that developing belief system around teaching. We get a lot of this kind of mid-fall semester, especially during maybe Ed TPA kind of time, from just this sense of disillusionment, being overwhelmed. I really don't have capacity to take on one more piece of feedback. So these are just some of the kind of places we have found our students that we're looking for tools as a team for how do we move forward with continuing to supervise them and mentor them in a way that helps them continue to grow. So did any of these kind of resonate with you? Have you ever met these students? And just kind of thinking about how does that impact your mentoring or your conversations with the student teacher when we're in that place, because they don't usually come with like a label that says, hi, I need to save face. Can you address your conversations that way? It's a lot of unpacking for us as well. So this to me, as I was kind of like thinking about what would I want to present, what would be relevant to my team that I work with, the work that I had done previously with Appreciative Inquiry really kind of came to mind. So what is it? I'm just going to kind of go through a quick overview. So we have a set of shared vocabulary and language. So when we're in breakout rooms, we can focus our conversations in this way. So Appreciative Inquiry is actually a strategy originally used in business organizations as a method for organizational improvement. It was developed originally as an alternative to problem-focused approach for identifying needs for change. So rather than focus on this is broken, let's fix it, it was like what is working and let's build from there. Appreciative Inquiry seeks through this framework and through a series of questioning to systematically discover what is most effective about an organization to build up those traits to create a climate of change. So successful organizations create a climate of change by learning from successful practice and building on those strengths. Appreciative Inquiry by nature is a collaborative, strengths-based approach to social change. And through time, there have other applications beyond business organizations have come up, and we found this helpful. So it is an alternative approach to action research, and it's often used as a transformational approach to developing leadership capacity. It does seek the positive aspects of lived experience in order to provide a foundation for creating the possibility of transformation and improvement. And the goal is really to build shared meaning out of the experience so that collective action can be taken for personal improvement or organizational improvement in service of that shared goal. So my thoughts were, by applying the Appreciative Inquiry framework to the student teaching mentorship experience, I believe it can be a positive approach to build upon the existing strengths of the student teacher as they develop their teaching practice in a way that frames supervision and its successful development of new teachers as a shared experience between the supervisor, the student teacher, as well as the credential program. All right. So what is this? What is this? Appreciative Inquiry is framed around what is known as the 4D cycle. And the D's stand for discover, dream, design, and destiny, or deliver. Rather than focusing on what is wrong, practitioners ask a series of affirming questions and encourage participants to focus on what works. So some of the key aspects is it is strengths-based. It identifies what's working well, builds from there. It is intentionally collaborative to involve all of the stakeholders. It should be framed in the use of positive language. It focuses on envisioning the future, and then it's designed to be an iterative process. So it should be a cycle, which very much follows the cycle of observation and feedback that we engage in with our students. And it looks like this, has a nifty little little image for you. So it starts with the discovery phase, which is about identifying and understanding what works well. It then moves into the dream phase, which is about envisioning a positive future. The design phase is focused on developing really concrete plans and strategies to achieve that desired goal. And then the destiny phase is about actually implementing those plans and monitoring our progress towards that shared future, and then cycle back around. So the benefit of this, of giving strengths-based feedback rather than identifying, here's what I saw that is wrong, and here is what we want to fix next time I come back to see you in your classroom, is that it seeks to amplify what works, encouraging agency and growth. It doesn't seek to ignore difficulties, which is a kind of common misconception like this, like, oh, it's just always rainbows and unicorns. No, we do need to acknowledge when things are not going well, but how can we frame those in a strengths-based positive lens in terms of moving forward? So we really want to frame and contextualize any challenges that the student is experiencing and how can we address them constructively and how make sure that they have shared input into what that needs to look like next. So as a collaborative approach to reflection, it can be supportive, especially for those students, teachers who are still working on developing growth mindset, which was a big kind of piece for us. Reflective dialogue, which is the key to the appreciative inquiry actual process, uses open-ended and affirming questions to guide deep reflection and co-learning. And that's something we've really been working on within the context of our program and our supervision, is this idea of like co-learning as a cohort, and where the supervisor is a participant and not the teller of all or the knower of all. And we do that through our lesson study or our collaborative case inquiries. So because it is an inquiry, there is a little 5th D that we want to acknowledge first, in that we do need to define the topic or focus of inquiry. So you don't want to go into and participate in the 4D cycle with just like everything and anything that has to do with your student teaching practice. Like narrow it down to something that's manageable as a topic or a focus for the sake of that conversation. Okay, so I'm going to share with you an example. I'm going to walk you through a scenario, and then what would some of these questions look like? And then we can move into breakout rooms with some other scenarios for you to kind of talk through what kinds of questions might I ask if this was my student, or how would I respond in this case? So we have a student. This is not a real student. This is a conglomeration of student that I have listened to my colleagues and experienced myself to come up with the Cameron. So Cameron is a student teacher enrolled in a single subject mathematics credential program. Cameron consistently excelled in math throughout high school and university and entered their teaching program confident in their deep subject knowledge. However, after being placed at a diverse urban school for their student teaching, Cameron has been struggling. In the classroom, Cameron finds it difficult to build rapport with students, many of whom express anxiety or disinterest in math. Their lessons, while technically correct and logically structured, often fail to engage the class. Despite thorough planning, students still seem confused or disengaged, and few are meeting learning objectives. Cameron is frustrated and self-critical, surprised to discover that teaching math is far more complex than mastering it. They feel a growing disconnect between their love of the subject and the ability to communicate it effectively to a varied group of learners. Cameron has begun to question whether they are suited for teaching, especially when students resist to fail or fail to grasp concepts that once seemed so intuitive. As Cameron's mentor, you are tasked with supporting their professional growth, not by fixing their deficits, but by exploring what is already working and how Cameron can evolve as a reflective, relational, and emotionally intelligent educator. So here is Cameron. Here is our job. So just some key things here. We've got Cameron was confident in math, struggling to build rapport, sensing a lot of students have anxiety around math, not sure how to really deal with that. Students are not meeting learning objectives. They seem disengaged. This is frustrating to Cameron, despite the fact that they're writing, what they think are really solid lesson plans. What does our inquiry look like? So the first thing we would do is kind of sit back and think, we probably all notice, what are some things we would immediately want to fix with Cameron? Oh, build relationships, Cameron. Just, we want to avoid that. We're not gonna prescribe to Cameron how to go in and fix using this process. Instead, we would want to explore what are some points that would make a good starting place for inquiry. We want to define There's a lot to unpack, but I'm sure Cameron is having some big successes as well. So what do we want to start with? What goals would we want to set with Cameron? Would be our starting place as a mentor. So we would want to first define. So in Cameron's case, our appreciative inquiry could center on understanding and cultivating relational pedagogical practices, that they can turn their deep knowledge into some student-centered, inclusive teaching practices. That's kind of maybe a good starting place or a goal. So again, we want to identify what already works or has the potential to work given other strengths that they have. So let's start by identifying some strengths they had in building connections with students and how can we present math in a way that resonates with our learners. So focusing on positive interpersonal relationships, moments where curiosity was truly sparked, and what do they really hope to see in math learners or in their classroom. So now we have a focus for inquiry ready to go. Cameron. Okay, so by grounding this inquiry in relational growth, we're able to kind of help Cameron move, hopefully, from just the content expert to a more transformative educator, our goal. So here we go. We'll walk through some questions. These are not prescribed. These are just suggested questions that would fit within this cycle in terms of each of the topics. So our pre-observation with Cameron, some questions about the discover phase. Something we might ask is, can you recall a moment in your own math learning when you felt most engaged and confident? What made the experience so meaningful? So we're just there to listen. We're giving them a platform to dive into thinking about and reflecting on what were positive moments in this context for you. Setting the stage, if you will. Or what past experiences helped you connect with students, even if it was in a different setting? Where were those moments already of connection? We're moving into kind of the dream phase and envisioning a positive future. If you can imagine your ideal math class where all students are engaged, what does it look and feel like? So getting them to really think about and design that in their head, to have that imagined. What would it look like if every student in your classroom felt confident and curious about math? Moving into the design phase where we're starting to lay down some concrete plans. What strategies are you planning to try today that align with your vision of making math engaging for all learners? How are you planning to support students who struggle or think differently than you did in math? And then in our destiny phase, okay, how are we actually going to make progress towards our future? What is one specific goal you have for today's lesson that aligns with becoming the kind of teacher you want to be? How will you know if you're building stronger connections with students during the lesson, getting them to pay attention to and be intentional about those moments they want to see? Then we go into the classroom and Cameron works their magic. We sit down afterwards and we'll use the same style of questioning to debrief the observation in the post-observation. So that discover phase. Was there a moment in today's lesson when you saw a student light up or show understanding? What do you think contributed to that? Get them to start by focusing on the positive. Even if it was one kiddo, that's better than everybody was disengaged. Nobody's connecting with my lesson. How did any past strengths or strategies show up in your teaching today? Oh, I do a great job when, right? We're already framing this. The dream phase, after today's lesson, what vision do you now have for how you want your students to feel in math? Let's build from that little bit of success we maybe have tasted. What did today's experience teach you about what's possible in your teaching future? So yes, you can be a great teacher, Cameron. Don't give up yet. It's early days. Start to design that. What does it look like? Which parts of your plan supported student engagement? And what might you tweak? So getting them focusing on the actual lesson in a positive light, not what didn't work, what do we need to do next, always different, but what worked? How do we make that happen more often? How did your instructional choices reflect your evolving teacher identity? So getting them to connect with why are you doing what you're doing? How does this align with your understanding of good teaching and learning? And then the ongoing destiny phase, what's one change you're committed to making based on today's lesson to better support student engagement? What support or resources do you want to seek out to keep growing in your teaching practice? So again, we're facilitating a discussion that really we're just posing questions that get them thinking and framed in the positive light around building off of their strengths, they're doing all of the talking and the ideas. We're just going to add more questions once we see a line of thinking that seems in line with what we hope as the goal for Cameron. All right, so I'm going to give you time in breakout rooms. Yay, the favorite part of all of the groups. So I have created 2 additional scenarios for you, and you can choose one or either to interact with. The first one is a scenario, and I've included some suggested questions. So if you want to do more of either a breakdown of what those questions look like, or a role play in terms of doing some debriefing as a supervisor using these, practicing active listening, or an empathetic response, or providing some peer feedback and coaching in your practice, you can do that. Scenario 3 allows you an opportunity to brainstorm some questions that align with the topic of inquiry using the 4D cycle. So it just gives you a scenario and lets you think of what type of questions might I ask for each of these different phases of the cycle. I have created some slides that are just a shared deck for you to capture any ideas on that you'll have access to after, in case any groups come up with fabulous ideas that you're like, oh, that's so wonderful, since we're only in groups with each other. So I'll go ahead and put that link for you first for the scenarios in the chat, so everybody has access to the same shared materials. These are also in the resource folder for you. And then here is the shared slide deck for you. You all should have edit access, so feel free. It's labeled like room 1, room 2 for you to engage with. And I guess we're all ready to go. Lisa, are we ready to go into breakout?
Yes, I will. Do you want me to set them up? I'll just do, let's see, we have 23 people. So do you want
Yes, Les.
10 people in each room, or
Maybe 3 people in
okay,
each room? Is that good?
do 3 to 4.
4? Good number. Okay.
And then, Jamie, I do have a question. Do you want us to record this anywhere or just jot down notes? Or are we gonna?
Oh, on the link I gave, there is a slide deck, and that is a note.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will pause the recording.
All right. Wow. Okay. Welcome back. Hopefully you had time to unpack some of those questions and just kind of explore how they might work for you. Share again here really quick. Right. So I had thrown a question in the little broadcast message there, getting us kind of thinking about our role as supervisors and what all of that kind of entails, and how the role of supervisor in the teacher development process, teacher education process, is different from just strict mentorship. So did anyone maybe have anything they discussed or wanted to share out about what was talked about in your groups, or if you had just any thoughts on that, put it in the chat or feel free to unmute.
It seems to me that when you have that mentorship piece in place, you prevent burnout, because I think that the candidate's experience and the mentor would also, there's an opportunity for burnout. And so you want to keep the spark alive. And so if you learn how to use those appreciative inquiry stems that we were practicing, we could come from a place of joy and growth rather than, oh, gotta phone it in, soulless, whatever.
Thank you, Ellen. I love that. I love that, coming from a place of joy for not only the students, but for the supervisors also.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on this idea of mentorship as a piece of the supervision role, because we know it's not the whole thing. There is an evaluative piece to the job, but I think in our heart, all of us are there and want to mentor the students and want to mentor the teachers. Did anyone? Yeah, Sandy.
I have a question here. I was with Sean and Amy, and we were talking about the cycle, the 4Ds and so forth. One of my questions, and I don't mean to be negative about this, but with my student teachers, it's always an issue of time. How much time we have together, and how much they can give me with their academic responsibilities and their student teaching responsibilities. This process is wonderful, but it's not something that you can do in 10 minutes,
Sure.
15 minutes. So how do we balance taking a look at this 4D cycle with their time constraints?
Sure. And I think that's a totally valid question. How do we make time for anything? I think I can't offer the answer. I could offer some suggestions, I guess, based on the way our program is structured. So we do have both pre and post observation meetings with the students. And without this, the pre-observation meeting seems very transactional oftentimes. Like, what's the lesson plan? What am I going to come see? Check the boxes versus having more of a richer conversation around the teaching. So I think it could be a condensed version of that. And, same with the post observation. But another suggestion I could throw out there is I had alluded to something that we use within the context of our program that happens as part of our seminar courses with the student teachers, where we use collaborative case inquiry, where we have time set aside each week for the students to dive into this like inquiry cycle. We are currently not using this structure in that, but some of us have been chatting about ways to maybe incorporate this framework into that structure that we already use. So we have a collaborative case inquiry or a lesson study that happens each week. And so there's another space that it doesn't have to happen exclusively as a observation debrief discussion, but as a larger process of inquiry that's ongoing, that has space within another structure in your program. Did anyone else have any other thoughts about that? I know time limit is always a thing. Sean?
Yeah, just a couple things, hopefully quickly. One comment and then one question, which you can set aside if we're short on time. The comment is about the question on the screen there, mentorship and supervision. I guess the way I'm seeing it is mentorship is a little bit more like modeling a process of thinking for our teacher candidates so that they're progressively becoming more self-sufficient in terms of problem solving. So we're encouraging independence ultimately. And the question, to tag on to Sandy's, that I'm struggling with a bit in my own practice is some of my teacher candidates, while I try to use a lot of questions, they want direct feedback. And they criticize me for, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. You're giving me the answers here. You're not asking me questions. So I don't know if others are facing that at times, but I have found that.
For sure can relate, I'm sure. Lisa? Everybody moves around me. Start talking. Oh, Lisa, you're on mute.
We had that same discussion in our group, that sort of just tell me what to do. And we talked about how this process, I think, really gives student teachers that ownership or agency over the changes or the shifts that they want to make, instead of it coming from somewhere else. So it's that sense of, I think this would be a good, and that's where the guidance comes, kind of helping with that. But so I think having that ownership is a great part of this. But also, I love the idea of envisioning what you want to have happen. And I think that sets really high expectations instead of sort of going through the motions or just surviving. It's like, well, if this goes really well, what's it going to look like? And if you don't have that vision in your mind, you probably aren't going to get there, right? So I love that piece of envisioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, they're student teachers, they're novice, that, you know, they may not have any teaching experience prior. So of course there's that strong desire to be like, just tell me what we want. That evaluative piece also comes in. Just tell me what you want so that I can do well. And that's not the real world of teaching, right? Like where there's not someone in there that you're just trying to impress. There's, you know, 30 little humans that you're trying to impress by leaving them with something magical. So I think that's a big mindset shift with, you know, the how we approach our mentorship with the students, but something that they also that's a norm, that's a shift, you know, for them to wanting to be students, to wanting to be professionals and teachers. So just some kind of takeaway thoughts, I guess I'll leave you with around creating this mentorship mindset. And this is just one tool that perhaps you can stick in your supervisor tool belt to maybe work with, is that supervision becomes mentorship when it's focused on mutual growth and not just that compliance piece. Just tell me what you want me to do so I can get the good grade, get the good mark, you know, light up your eyes. A participatory appreciative inquiry approach places the mentee or the teacher candidate, in our case, in the driver's seat of the learning and decision making, because it's ultimately them that have to navigate the moment to moment daily decisions in the context of a classroom. And the more that we can give them those tools to do that effectively and not feel overwhelmed by the job as a whole, I feel will benefit them as stronger teachers in the future. And then they are still learning and they are novices, and there is a purpose between having the supervisor as well as the cooperating teacher in the classroom, to help guide them in that process. So supervisors and candidates can co-create a vision for effective teaching that's reinforced through the dialogue and action of the observation process. So we are many times the more knowledgeable other, but at the same time, they bring so much of their own experience and ideas about what an effective classroom will look like and what an effective classroom for them will look like, that it isn't us just creating replications of ourselves. It's us trying to help them realize the best of themselves. And, you know, they need experience and time for that to happen. But if they have a clear vision in their mind of like what that will look like eventually, then they have a real target that they can aim for. So I'll just leave you with that. Also, just within the resource folder, I left you just with some more open-ended appreciative inquiry style questions that are aligned with the TPEs. So you can have kind of a starting place for playing around with this for, you know, even if you're not doing a full cycle, just the types of questions that you might ask, whether it's in a debrief meeting or in the context of a collaborative case inquiry, or whatever time you get to carve out to work with your student teachers. So thank you everybody so much for joining my session today. I'm happy to continue the conversation and collaboration. Please feel free to email me or contact me afterwards, but otherwise have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful start to your years.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I loved having these scenarios. That was really great. And the question examples helps make it. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for organizing that so nicely. So, and thank you all for being here. We're gonna just have one final debrief. So the session or the link to that is in the program, but thank you everyone for being here.